requesting permission to do a hardship rental because of the situation. And so he explained the situation, which sounded very legitimate to me. So I pursued several other questions to him to clarify who he was talking to. Was it indeed his association board or the management company? And he had basically been in contact with the management company in his particular instance. So I told him he really needed to be in contact with the board, because that would be an issue handled by the association board. And that I was going to be contacting the board president myself. And I did indeed talk to the board president, who had an intention of calling me anyway, not only because of this gentleman's situation, but about others. At that time there were 2, and now we're up to as many as 4. And there's a couple things going on here. Number one, in the Cranberry Lake North covenants, and also in the Cranberry Lake Townhome covenants, which both read the same, there is an area that says no more than 15% of the total units will be rentals. Therefore, to avoid these being turned into rental communities. Now, of course, at the time that those were written, nobody dreamed the possibility that the real estate market could be upside down the way it is, and also have the situation in the economy and so many people out of jobs. So, it says that if they reach the 15% capacity, that any hardship desire for to become a rental property would then have to come before the village board to get an approval.
Each individual person would have
Yes, yeah, case by case basis. So this gentleman came to me for that reason, because the management company was quoting that to him. I, of course, stated, well, I have not heard anything from your association board that tells me that they've reached this limit and that they are in a position where they need to start sending people to us. So I need to confirm that, and probably should have it formally in writing, et cetera, et cetera. So I have been in contact with the president and was very dismayed to find out a couple things, although I, again, sympathize with their situation to a point. They were not tracking as diligently the number of rentals as they should have been, or having the proper instruments in place. And when they did have people coming to them for approvals, they were granting them, and there is some merit to this thought, because given the economy and the number of foreclosures, they wanted to keep as many of their units occupied rather than seeing them go into foreclosure and become vacant, and then also lose that association monthly income. So their thought was, let's try to keep people, above water and get the property. So there is some merit to that thinking, and I don't deny that, and I also feel for these people. But there's also language in the covenant that says part of that hardship process is they have to have their property on the market for at least 6 months before they can go down the hardship road. So not all of these 4 people, I confirmed today, have made that benchmark. In fact, I only have confirmation that 1 out of the 4 has had their property now
up for sale.
For sale. Now, I may find out differently tomorrow, but that's all I've been able to confirm as of today. Now, the association president also further acknowledged to me that when they went to their attorney seeking legal advice on another matter, it was the attorney that then pointed out the detail of this particular covenant and the importance of them adhering to it. And it was then that the president called me and we discussed it, and he acknowledged that, well, gee, we really haven't paid close attention to it. And I said, well, where are you at with your percentage? Are you at 15%? Oh no, we're past it. Well, where are you? Well, I don't know. Well, you need to figure it out. So at the time we did this packet, I didn't have the information. I had been asking for it At your places tonight was passed out a copy of the email. He forwarded me an email December 21st or 23rd, and then there was a failure notice, which is why I didn't get it. He put in my address wrong. He put Linda Soda instead of Linda Soto. But anyway, in him checking with the management company, they show 43 units out of 157 with off-site addresses for owners, or 27.4% if all those are rented. And then he's saying we have an additional 4 requests pending right now, and as I just stated a moment ago, I only know we have confirmed that one truly meets all the requirements today, with as far as having their house on the market for 6 months. But if you granted all 4, that would make it a total of 47, which make it 29.9%. Now, when Don Hayden and this resident, but in talking this through with the association president, you know, obviously there's frustration, and his hopes was that I could wave a magic wand and say, given the circumstances and the state of the economy, sure, we'll grant this. I had explained to them that legally I can't do that. It's a topic for the entire village board to vote on, number 1. Number 2, the covenant states what the covenant states, and I have to adhere to that language. So if it states that a house has to be on the market 6 months, it has to be on the market 6 months, at least for addressing this initial request right now. The other side of the coin is they could look at saying they want to change the covenant, which this morning when I talked to the president, he said, we would like to change the covenant. But then again, I stressed to him, that's nothing that's going to happen overnight, number 1. That's a longer process. So the best bet is to deal with these individual cases that need answers, and let's expedite them as quickly as possible. So in fairness to these people, they can get an answer. And then on a separate project, we'll work on changing the covenant. But that is not our job as a village board. That falls...
Doesn't the covenant, isn't that required to be voted on by the...
That's what I'm getting to. Just bear with me another moment.
Thank you.
Bear with me another moment. It falls back to the association board to decide what they want to change the covenant to. And yes, they have to, and they should seek strong legal advice on this. And then they would have to get a vote by proxy from all those members who have to get a certified mail letter, I believe, is it certified registered mail letter? They get a notice of when the meeting and the hearing, the vote will be taken, and so on and so forth. So that falls on their responsibility, not ours. So I think our immediate job as a village board is, you know, we have, right now as of tonight, I know 1 confirmed person that has made all the benchmarks. I'm going to give the documents to Jim just so he can eyeball them real quick, just make sure he feels right. But it seems to me they made all the benchmarks. So we could render a decision on that particular party at the next board meeting, or as soon as the next board meeting. As far as these other parties waiting, the president confirmed to me, like I said, I know that 2 of them I don't believe have had it on the market 6 months. The other one, I'm not sure at all where they're at. I have not received any additional paperwork to prove or disprove what's going on there, so I am waiting. You know, the other thoughts that came up in this whole process, and we're going a lot of places, is what can we, the village, do, number 1, when we approve this, to say, you know, is there any kind of parameters or guidelines we can give them? So, okay, we're going to grant this hardship rental, but is there anything that we can suggest or make them do that would guarantee a better tenant, if you will? And so Jim Rock and I were discussing that a little bit because, you know, there was a discussion about, you know, credit checks, but credit checks in this economy, again, a lot of people have bad credit scores that are still very good people. Number 2, there's a question about criminal background checks, but we don't know if we as a village can mandate that. A private homeowner association, if they change their covenant, perhaps could, and that's up to their legal counsel, but we cannot. So definitely, the government cannot. So
The only thing we can really do, not tonight, is decide whether or not the individuals who have met the covenant, the agreements in the covenant, the standards of the covenant, is whether or not we can okay them to have hardship rental.
Right.
Well, and
So what you're
Yeah,
saying,
we can't take a vote on that tonight because the
No,
agenda
we're not.
says discussions only, but yeah, we definitely can have that conversation.
But
so hardships are over and above the 15%, and they're already over that?
Yes.
We're up to almost 30.
You should have an email in front of you.
I know, I have
Yeah,
that. That's why, and then also, we can approve, they're already over it, but we're gonna approve that they can do even more.
All right, I'm going to open the floor a minute, only because we have a treasurer here from Union Square Association. Are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I'm gonna step up.
I'm going to grant you talking because you're an association board member.
You get all this.
Yeah. You're
Thank
special.
you. Chris Larson, 91 East Haynes Drive, treasurer and now president pro tem of Union Square.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, promoted. Just as a point of clarity, when you say covenants, do you mean the articles of incorporation and the bylaws, or the rules, regulations, and covenants as decided on by the association's membership? There is a distinct point of clarity there that needs to be made.
For the Cranberry Lake Condominium Associations, it is the declaration of ownership and the bylaws,
Okay.
declaration, easements, restrictions, covenants, and bylaws. And for Union Square, let's just look at the name of the declaration.
But we're not addressing the Union Square.
Yeah.
Correct. I'm not addressing Union Square, and I'm very familiar with those.
Yeah, did we talk about Union Square, is it what there's, just so the board is, and anybody watching is familiar with the difference between the Cranberry Lake agreements and the Union Square. Union Square does not have a limitation on the number of rental units. All the owners in Union Square have the right to lease, as long as the lease is for a minimum of 1 year. So the board does not have the authority to grant or withhold requests for rentals in Union Square. Each of those owners has the right, based on the documents that govern their operations, they have the right to lease their their condominiums.
Their properties.
Their properties, thank
That's
you.
correct.
And, but as we discussed, the Cranberry Lake associations have a different set of covenants.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure and understand the point, because the legalities between them and the avenues that need to be taken are significantly different. And Mayor Soto, if you would like to meet after this meeting to discuss some of that in depth. We've looked at a number of changes in our association as well, and have some solid legal advice from our attorneys that would be pertinent to this discussion.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
thank you.
Excellent.
Now, quick question, didn't we a few years back, when we were building all these townhomes and condominiums, and then the federal government came in and mandated that we had to set aside so many properties in the village for affordable housing? Now, how does that play into the whole? Ted, can you help us on that one?
We're looking at Russ. Russ?
No, Russ, didn't we have to set aside so much property?
It was discussed at one time, I thought we did a percentage.
Yeah, we had to set aside a certain percentage
Ted,
of
why don't you approach
housing
the mic?
as affordable housing.
I think that's.
Your former mayor of Hainesville, there is a document in the files written by Al Lee, our planner, that covers that issue of affordable housing. And I don't know how he did.
But that doesn't have to do with number of rentals, does it?
Yes, it is. Wouldn't most of the affordable housing be considered rentals?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily? Okay. All right, well, I'm just asking the question, because I remember we did the.
It would be
affordable
quite a
housing.
sale price. It would certainly be quite a sale price.
Affordable housing is for sale, not for rental.
All right.
Well, Dave, I was
Okay.
answering Kevin's,
Yeah.
there is a document file
Okay.
written by Al that,
And I'm somewhat familiar with the document, but I don't think